Hi, my name is Laurie Connors and I'm Northborough's Planning Director. I'm here to talk to you about Articles 35 through 40, which have to do with the Community Preservation Fund. So just as a little bit of background information about the Community Preservation Act funds, this money is derived from a 1.5% surcharge on property. And it is matched with state funds as well. Between 2006 and 2024, the state match has been $3,416,140. So the town's participation in the Community Preservation Act has been very lucrative for the town and has enabled us to do a number of fantastic projects. This year, the estimated CPA revenue is $840,000. In accordance with the CPA legislation, the town must spend these monies in certain categories. 10% must be spent on open space, 10% on affordable housing, and 10% on historical preservation projects. The remaining 70% can be allocated towards any of these three uses or for recreation projects, or it can be set aside in the CPA reserve accounts. So essentially, the purpose of that would be to create a large amount of money that could finance a large and expensive project. So this year, the amount of money that is available to the town is $1,710,830, and that consists of our reserves balance of $870,000 approximately, and the estimated CPA revenue for FY26, which is $840,000. So this slide shows the way that the CPA monies have been allocated during FY06 to FY25. So you can see that the bulk of the funds have been spent on open space and recreation projects at approximately $7.6 million. And the smallest amount of money has been spent on affordable housing. We've only spent slightly over $2 million. Middle of the pack is historic preservation projects, the most significant being the acquisition of White Cliffs in 2017. So now I'll go into Article 35 specifically. This is an exciting project to create affordable housing at Colonial Village. So this Colonial Village is owned by the Northborough Housing Authority, and it consists of senior housing, as well as housing for disabled folks. So this project involves constructing 8 affordable, low-income, one-bedroom rental units that would be specifically targeted for veterans, and it would be at their campus, which is located at 26 Village Drive. The town share would be $880,000. The total project cost is estimated to be $2 million. So the balance of that cost would be covered by a combination of the Northborough Housing Authority, as well as a grant from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. So this year, we are interested in going with a modular design. And the reason for that is a few years ago, the town was interested in doing your traditional frame project, but the cost was much more expensive than it would be for a modular design. So the Housing Authority ended up being short of funds because the state decided at the last minute not to fund that project. But because this project is much more economical, going with the modular design, they are confident that the state will support the project and contribute grant funds for its construction. So an important thing to keep in mind is that the new building and the associated improvements, which include parking, walkways, utilities, stormwater facilities, and landscaping, would go through the town's typical permitting process with the Zoning Board of Appeals. It would be permitted through the comprehensive permit process. And the exterior design will blend with the existing buildings at Colonial Village. So this is a concept that shows approximately where the building would be placed. So the proposed building is in this gray. And then you can also see the layout of the proposed walkways, and you can see how they plan on reconfiguring the existing parking lot to include the required spaces. So this proposal includes some additional parking to serve those new units. So it would be 2 parking spaces required for each dwelling, as well as some visitor parking. So this picture shows a unit layout that the Housing Authority is considering. So as you can see here, these are very nice units. It includes a living room, bedroom, bathroom, and a combination of a dining and kitchen space. So each unit would have laundry hookups, and 4 units would be located on the first floor, would be ADA accessible. So some of the goals that would be advanced by the approval of Article 35 is that it would help meet the local demand for low-income housing for disabled and other veterans in the downtown. This is important because, of course, the downtown has easy access to shopping and services. So particularly for folks who are disabled, they may have some trouble getting around, may not have the ability to drive. They would be able to access services much easier than if they had to own a car. So to the extent allowed by law, local preference will be given to Northborough residents. The Housing Authority would be subject to a funding agreement, which would help ensure that the project is completed satisfactorily. The new units would be added to Northborough's subsidized housing inventory, which tracks the number of affordable housing units that are in perpetuity in the town of Northborough. So right now, our percentage is 10.28%. That means that we are compliant with Chapter 40B, which is a state law that mandates that communities have a minimum of 10% of their housing stock allocated to low-income or moderate income households. But the important thing to note is that that percentage is decreasing at a steady pace as the town builds more market rate housing and does not build affordable housing to keep pace with that. So since 2020, when the last tally of housing stock was taken, based on the 2020 census, there have been 150 new market rate units built, under construction, or proposed. And during that period of time, there has only been 1 affordable unit constructed. So our percentage is falling at a steady clip. And if at this rate, our percentage would be 10.02%. So the next time the housing stock total is tallied is 2030 with the new census. So I predict that we will fall below the 10% threshold very, very soon. So if the town does fall below the 10%, Northborough will be forced to allow Chapter 40B housing developments, and they could be in a quantity and in a location unfavorable to the town. For example, we do have a couple of 40B projects that were approved approximately 10 to 20 years ago, and those housing projects are located in the industrial district where housing is not typically allowed. Okay, so Article 36 has to do with the allocation of $200,000 to the Conservation Fund to support the acquisition of open space for both passive recreation and conservation purposes. You may recall last year that the town acquired 432 Whitney Street using conservation funds, which dramatically reduced the balance. So by allocating $200,000 towards that purpose, we will be partially reimbursing that fund, and it certainly is helpful when open space becomes available for sale for the town to be able to act quickly. And in order to do so, we really need to have reserves of money available for a quick acquisition. So the next article is Article 37, which pertains to a Revolutionary War monument. This request is $10,758 for the purchase and installation of a commemorative monument at the town common to recognize the sacrifices of the soldiers during the American Revolution. So on this slide, you can see the proposed text. The next slide shows the size of the monument is proposed to be granite, 3 feet by 5 feet, and it's proposed to be located at the town common. On this slide, it's denoted by a flag. And this is another image of the profile of the monument, where it will be located, and also it takes into account the relative size. Next article is Article 38, having to do with the White Cliffs Mansion design and demolition. So of course, as many of you know, the town acquired the White Cliffs Mansion in 2017 using $2.4 million in CPA funds. A portion of those funds were used to stabilize the building and do some research and evaluation of it. So there was a study that was completed in 2020 by DBVW Architects, and what they found that in terms of water infiltration, the kitchen, ballroom, and east additions provide the greatest threat to the historic fabric within White Cliffs. So over to the right, you can see some images of these additions. You can see that they are not in very good condition, and they also are not architecturally pleasing, and they have no historic significance. For the most part, these additions are made of cinder block. So this picture shows relatively where the additions are located in red, and what this project proposes to do is to figure out how to remove those additions and button up the building in a temporary manner afterwards. So the blue pictures below show what the building would look like once the additions are removed and the building is buttoned up. So some of the goals that are advanced by Article 38 is that it really sets the stage for the demolition of these poorly constructed and maintained additions. So the money would pay for an architectural study, as I mentioned, and once again, the additions have no architectural, aesthetic, or historic value to the mansion. So their removal will eliminate the major source of mold and mildew. The restoration of the mansion's historic appearance and configuration is actually required by the Mass Historic Commission. The town did submit a letter to Mass Historic a number of years ago to see if the mansion could be listed on the historic register, And the recommendation from Mass Historic is to remove the additions first, and then it would qualify for listing. So the removal makes the reuse and renovation of the mansion more manageable because it decreases the footprint of the building by 35% or 5,000 square feet. So this is a very large building. It's approximately 15,000 square feet in size. So removing 5,000 square feet is significant to reducing the price tag of its renovation and reuse. And lastly, this project will propel the restoration and reuse of White Cliffs forward. Of course, the town did make a sizable investment in the acquisition of White Cliffs, and certainly we really want to see a return on the taxpayer investment. The next article, Article 39, has to do with the White Cliffs bond payment. There are 10 payments that go towards the acquisition price of White Cliffs back in 2017. So this would be the 8th bond payment of $166,575. So we're almost there, only a couple of bond payments left to go. And just so you know, the bond payments on White Cliffs have consumed less than 25% of the CPA yearly revenues. Article 40 is the last one. It has to do with authorizing funds for CPC operating expenses. This year, we are asking for $42,000, which is less than 5% of the projected FY25 CPA revenues. So these funds can cover a variety of expenses of the Community Preservation Committee, including professional fees, appraisals, architectural fees, clerical expenses, and coalition dues. So any unused amounts at the end of the fiscal year go back into the CPA General Reserve.